Orla, back in 2012, the Irish Tourist Industry Confederation highlighted the need for a new brand and marketing strategy for Dublin. This in turn led to the Grow Dublin Task Force, and last week Fáilte Ireland unveiled an exciting new brand and campaign for Dublin. Tell us a bit more about the thinking behind this new identity for Dublin.
Well, the first step was the GDT, which was the Grow Dublin Task Force, which did an in-depth study on Dublin to identify who our competitor set was, what our visitors thought of Dublin, and what should we be doing. And there's quite a strategy put in place from there. Out of that came the GDTA to implement the strategy. But the key findings in the GDTA were basically that Dublin was a bit unknown, in the sense that people knew Dublin, but not for what we want them to know it for. It was seen as dusty and old-fashioned, and also, more importantly, it was actually getting lost in an Ireland brand. Now, Dublin visitors, people who come to Ireland on holiday will always spend a night in Dublin, which is great, but in terms of that city break market, we were losing out and being seen as part of Ireland, which was seen as much more rural. So we needed to develop a brand that has it as a vibrant city so that we compete against our competitors. So they were the key things. So the three objectives of the GDTA were a new brand and a subsequent campaign, the funding for said brand, and obviously would lead to economic growth.
Very good. And Dublin, of course, is a key part of Ireland's tourism economy, and I think has over 4 million international visitors per year. So it does quite well in its own right, but there's huge potential for growth into the future. Tell us a little bit about the new brand itself, Dublin, a breath of fresh air. It's a very different look and feel compared to previous marketing collateral for the city.
Well, out of the GDT, they developed the proposition, which is all about Dublin being a vibrant, exciting city full of surprises. But the key bit of it was this wonderful natural outdoors that is so close to it, being our living bay and our mountains. And this is our differentiator from our competitive set. Our competitive set is seen to be the likes of Berlin, Prague, Barcelona, Amsterdam, Copenhagen and Edinburgh. So from that we kind of say, okay, what do we have that's different? We are a vibrant city, but so too are they all vibrant cities. But key is that we have this wonderful bay and mountains that we don't exploit and we don't use. We need to maximise those assets. So someone coming to the city can have an exciting city break, but right beside it they can get out to the outdoors, go and walk on Howth Head, climb Dalkey Quarry or do mountain biking in Ticknock or whatever it might be. So that's the differentiator. So then we look to say, okay, how do we bring that brand to life? Okay, and before we actually never had a brand for Dublin. Dublin didn't actually stand for anything. It was a city. In terms of ourselves here in Fáilte Ireland, it was Visit Dublin, but that doesn't tell you anything about a city. It just says, come. It doesn't tell the visitor what does Dublin stand for, what is it about, why should I look to it over another city. So the idea was to develop a brand that brought that to life. And the first stage of that was developing the brand tagline, which is a breath of fresh air. And we really felt that that encapsulated the city, not just in terms of how we differentiate ourselves, in terms of this wonderful outdoors, but also a bit leading to the people and who we are, in the sense that there is that wit and humour and friendliness about the city that we can add to that. And then how that developed into the logo was to very much capture that sense, that whole breath of fresh air sense in a word, if you know what I mean, and in how the Dublin is presented. So to capture that in movement, which brings the waves and the mountains, we do that in the colours as well of the logo. But also a nice bit of it is the birds, and they're actually swifts. And swifts, would you believe, actually migrate to Ireland. So they're coming to Dublin for their holidays because of our Georgian buildings. But they do everything in the air. They mate and they eat in the air. So it's a nice link to it. But also, it also links very much to Jonathan Swift. So we have another tale on that as well. So there's a depth to this, I suppose, identity that is far more than just a visual. It captures what the city is about. And hopefully, from a visitor, so someone in Berlin or in other cities seeing it will go, actually, that's interesting. What is Dublin about? What's different about it now that I don't know about it?
Yeah, and it's a strong, exciting brand with a great standout. In terms of marketing and promoting the brand and the destination going forward, what are the key markets and what sort of marketing funds will you be able to allocate to it?
Well, this is the first phase that we launched there last week, and we're targeting the UK, Germany and France as the three key markets. And we have raised, which is absolutely fantastic, because the big thing about this, I suppose, just want to explain it first, Owen, is that this is future-proofing. Dublin is doing well, so you could say why we bothered to do this. But actually it's not about next month's sales or even next 6 months' sales. It's about 2 and 3 years' time. If we don't change perception, if people still see Dublin as dusty and old-fashioned, when the tide changes, we won't do so well. So things are aligned at the moment. We've got great access, we've got a great fabulous exchange rate, so we're doing well on the back of that. But should that change, we want to make sure Dublin is in a position to compete against our competitors, who are also working to make sure that they are eating our lunch.
That's right. It's a very competitive
It's
marketplace.
Hugely competitive, and we have to stay vibrant, and we have to stay innovative, and we have to stay changing, or else we're kind of seen as I'll go there someday. There's better places to go to. So fortunately, actually, this has been very much a collaborative affair in the GDTA. We've had members of I suppose your typical tourism industry, but we've also had non-tourism businesses involved in terms of marketeers and retailers and journalists, so quite a vast involved in developing this. But also on the funding of it, which is a key part of it, was like, how do we fund this? And it's been funded through a private-public funding model. So the public sector are very much involved, in the sense ourselves, Fáilte Ireland, the 4 local authorities. We've also got huge involvement from the accommodation sector and IHF, but also other private sector as well have been involved in this. So for the first phase, we've raised €1 million. And of that, 450 was from Tourism Ireland, 300 was from the local authorities, 150 from the accommodation sector as an IHF, and then the remainder came from the private sector. And that was done through kind of a founding funders model, in the sense that we invited a number of people and asked them, would they be part of this and contribute 10,000. So it's been very successful. The campaign has just started, but we're seeing that's been effective. But it's not a flash in the pan. We want this to continue in 2016 and 2017. So we have commitment from both the local authorities, from Fáilte and from the accommodation sector. We now want to go out further to I say the private sector, it's more the non-accommodation sector, actually. It's probably
the wider tourism industry.
The wider tourism industry. And this is, everything. It's not just your attractions, it is also your restaurants, it's your retail, it's your pubs. It's also, businesses like perhaps Facebook and Google, because if we present a wonderful city, employees will want to come and work here. So I think we've got to think wider than even wider than we even are trying to think. And we wanted to approach these, get people involved, be committed to make sure that the city and Dublin develops this brand and is successful in the future. And just to add a key element to this as well, you'll probably have seen some of the branding around the city, is we believe Dubliners need to be proud of this. Dubliners need to get behind this, because they need to talk positively, and they're the best ambassadors. So we want every tourism business, every business using the logo, but we want every person who lives in Dublin to also be proud of it, and to talk about it, and to talk in that way of a breath of fresh air.
So the objective is to achieve a collective buy-in to the brand and its destination, Dublin as a whole.
Yes, and I think, if Dublin does well, Ireland will also do well, we know that. But, we've got to make sure that we are seen as, it's funny, one of the things that struck me when we were doing this project was the visitor didn't see Dublin as the people who lived here saw Dublin. They saw Dublin as exciting. There's loads of places, there's loads of restaurants open, there's a buzz around the city. The visitor saw us dusty and old-fashioned. So actually, all we're trying to do is tell potential visitors, the city that we all live in is really good, and actually you're not seeing it the way we see it.
Hear, hear. Great. Many thanks, Orla. We wish the brand and the marketing campaign every good fortune. It's evidently a very collaborative approach to growing tourism to Dublin, and hopefully the strong year that Dublin's enjoying this year, and indeed Ireland is enjoying as a whole, will continue into 2016 and beyond.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.